It was a quiet Sunday morning in Cape Town. Lorado sat on her small balcony, coffee in hand, soaking in the peace of her new apartment. Sunlight poured through the curtains, warming the space she'd spent months decorating. Every corner had her touch. The plants by the window, the framed sketches on the wall, the soft beige couch she'd saved up for. This place wasn't just an apartment, it was proof of how far she'd come. Then her phone rang. "Mom," she smiled, answering. Her mother's excited voice filled the line. "Lorado, you won't believe it. Nandi just got engaged. She and Saifo are already looking for a place to stay. I told them your apartment is perfect." Lorado froze, her cup halfway to her lips. "You told them what?" she asked, her voice calm but tight. "Oh, come on," her mother said with a laugh. "You can move back home for a while. You're single after all. It's not like you need so much space." Lorado blinked, unsure if she'd heard right. Move back home. After years of struggle, late nights, missed meals, and endless design projects, she'd finally built a home of her own. Her eyes moved slowly across the room, from the soft light on her curtains to the rug she found at a market in Woodstock. Everything here was hers. "Mom," she finally said, voice steady but cold, "you shouldn't have done that." That call changed everything. Lorado drove to her family home that weekend, hoping the whole thing was just a misunderstanding. Maybe her mom had exaggerated, or maybe Nandi hadn't actually planned to move in. The familiar streets of her old neighborhood brought back memories. Walking to school with her sister, the smell of her mom's cooking, the noise of everyone talking over each other at dinner. She tried to calm the frustration bubbling inside her. When she arrived, her mom greeted her like nothing was wrong. "Lorado, you look tired, my girl. Work keeping you busy again," she said, ushering her inside. The smell of beef stew filled the air, and for a moment, Lorado almost relaxed. But when dinner started, the real reason for the visit came out. "So," her mother began, spooning rice onto everyone's plates, "Nandi and Saifo are still looking for a place. I keep telling them your apartment is perfect. It's modern, safe, and already set up for a couple." Lorado set down her fork. "Mom, that's my home. You can't just offer it to them." Her mother gave her a look, the one that always came before a guilt trip. "Family should share, Lorado. You have no husband or children. You'll be fine moving back home for a bit. Let your sister enjoy it for her honeymoon." Across the table, Nandi smirked. "It's just for a few months, sis. Don't be dramatic." Lorado felt the sting of it, that familiar feeling of being the spare daughter, the one expected to give in, to make things easier for everyone else. She forced a small laugh. "You're serious about this?" Her mother sighed, shaking her head. "You've become so selfish lately. After all we did for you, the school fees, the sacrifices. Is this how you repay us?" The words hit like a slap. Lorado stared down at her plate, appetite gone. For years, that guilt had worked. It had made her say yes when she wanted to say no. It had kept her quiet when she should have spoken up. But something in her had changed. She looked up, meeting her mother's eyes. "I'm grateful for everything you did. But this apartment, I worked for it. I built that life myself. I'm not giving it up." The room went quiet. Even the clinking of cutlery stopped. Nandi rolled her eyes and muttered, "You're overreacting." Lorado pushed back her chair and stood. Her voice was calm, but her hands trembled. "I'm not moving out. End of story." Her mother sighed dramatically. "You'll regret this attitude, Lorado. Family always comes first." "Exactly," Lorado said softly, grabbing her bag. "And I'm finally learning to be part of that family too, including myself." As she walked out into the cool night air, her chest felt heavy, but her steps were steady. For the first time in years, she hadn't let guilt win. A few days later, Lorado came home from work, exhausted but relieved to finally have some peace. She'd spent the week trying to shake off the argument with her mom and sister. As she climbed the stairs to her apartment, she was already picturing herself on the couch with a cup of tea and her favorite show. But when she unlocked the door, she froze. There were voices inside. She stepped in slowly, and her heart sank. Nandi and Saifo were standing in the middle of her living room, holding a tape measure. Saifo was jotting numbers on his phone while Nandi talked excitedly about where the couch should go. "What are you doing here?" Lorado asked, her voice low but sharp. Nandi turned, startled for a moment, then smiled like nothing was wrong. "Oh, hey! Mom gave us the keys. We just wanted to see how our stuff will fit." Lorado blinked, not sure she'd heard right. "Mom gave you my keys?" Nandi nodded, still casual. "Yeah. She said you'd understand. We'll be moving in soon, so we wanted to plan ahead. Don't worry, you'll find another place." That last sentence hit her like a punch. "You'll find another place." The words echoed in her head as she looked around her apartment. The walls she painted herself, the furniture she saved for months to buy, the plants she kept alive through every late night. They were treating it like it already belonged to them. "You had no right," Lorado said quietly, her throat tightening. Nandi shrugged. "Come on, it's not that deep. We're family. You'll be fine." Lorado couldn't even respond. She walked past them, into her bedroom, where boxes of her personal projects were neatly stacked, design sketches, fabric samples, her dream in progress. From the living room, she could still hear Nandi chatting about curtain colors and Sifo suggesting a TV mount. Her hands shook as she sat on her bed. Anger, sadness, disbelief. It all mixed inside her until she felt like she might explode. For a moment, she wanted to scream, but instead she stayed quiet. Later that night, after they finally left, Lorado sat in the dark with her laptop open. The city lights outside flickered softly through the blind. She opened a property app, scrolling through listings, not because she was looking for a new apartment, but because she was done being disrespected. She wasn't going to beg her family to understand her boundaries. She wasn't going to argue anymore. She was going to do something that would make them listen, once and for all. As she stared at the glowing screen, a calm, determined look crossed her face. This time, she wasn't the quiet sister. She was done being pushed around, and whatever came next, it would be on her terms. The next morning, Lorado woke up with her decision already made. There was no more thinking, no more second-guessing. She sat on the edge of her bed, looked around her apartment one last time, and picked up her phone. "Tabo," she said when her friend answered, still half asleep. "I need to sell my apartment." There was a pause. "Sell it? Lorado, are you sure? You love that place." "I'm sure," she said quietly. "List it fast." Tabo hesitated, but he knew her well enough to hear the finality in her voice. "Okay," he said. "I'll come by this afternoon to take photos." When the call ended, Lorado sat still for a moment. Her stomach twisted with nerves, but underneath that, she felt something else, control. For the first time in a long while, she wasn't reacting. She was deciding. While her mother assumed she was sulking and her sister went on bragging about moving soon, Lorado was actually boxing up her things, little by little. She worked quietly at night, wrapping her framed sketches, folding her blankets, carefully labeling each box. She didn't tell a soul. By the weekend, Tabo had listed the apartment online. "It's a great space," he told her during a showing. "You'll get offers fast." He was right. Within a few days, a polite older woman fell in love with the place. She didn't even try to negotiate. "It has good energy," the woman said. Lorado smiled. "It does." When the papers were signed, Lorado stood in the empty living room, the echoes of her footsteps bouncing off the wall. The furniture was gone, the shelves bare. It felt strange, painful even, to see the place stripped of all the life she'd poured into it. But beneath the ache was something stronger, freedom. She remembered the day she first walked into this apartment, broke and uncertain, holding her first paycheck from a small design job. It had been her dream space, a place she built from scratch. And now, letting it go wasn't weakness. It was power. That night, she packed the last box, her favorite plant, the one she'd kept alive through every season. She placed it carefully on the passenger seat of her car, locked the door, and took one last look at the building. "Let's see what Mom says now," she whispered with a small, tired smile. Then she drove off into the quiet Cape Town evening, feeling lighter than she had in years. That Saturday morning, Lorado's mother and sister arrived at the apartment building full of excitement. The movers followed behind them, carrying boxes and furniture wrapped in plastic. Nandi was dressed in a bright sundress, sunglasses on her head, talking loudly about where she wanted the couch to go. Her mother smiled proudly, already imagining her daughter settled in the perfect place she had so kindly arranged. But when they reached the door, something was off. The key didn't fit. Nandi frowned, trying again. "Maybe she changed the lock," her mother said. A few seconds later, the door opened, but it wasn't Lorado standing there. It was an older woman with short silver hair and kind eyes. She looked surprised to see the group standing in the hallway with movers behind them. "Excuse me," Lorado's mother said, her voice sharp. "Who are you, and why are you in my daughter's apartment?" The woman blinked. "Your daughter? Oh, you must be mistaken. I'm the owner. I bought this apartment from Lorado Makona last week." For a moment, no one spoke. The movers looked at each other awkward. Nandi's smile slowly faded. "Wait, what do you mean you bought it?" The woman tilted her head. "Exactly that. I finalized the sale on Tuesday. Lovely place, isn't it?" Nandi's face went pale. "She sold it?" she whispered, turning to her mother. Her mother's mouth opened and closed like she couldn't find the words. "She wouldn't dare," she finally said, her voice rising. "There must be a mistake." "There's no mistake," the woman replied kindly but firmly. "I have the papers right here if you'd like to see them." The movers slowly began setting the boxes back down, realizing this wasn't going to end well. Nandi, embarrassed and furious, stormed off toward the elevator, muttering under her breath. Her mother stood there for a moment longer, her pride wounded, before following her. Back at home, it didn't take long for Lorado's phone to start buzzing. Her mother's name flashed across the screen again and again. When she finally picked up, her mother didn't even say hello. "How could you do this to your sister?" she shouted. "Do you know how humiliated we were?" She had movers there. You've disgraced this family. Lorado listened quietly, letting her mother finish. When the shouting paused, she said calmly, "You said my apartment was perfect for her, remember?" Her mother's voice trembled with anger. "That's not what I meant." "Well," Lorado said softly, "now she can try buying it, like I did." There was silence on the other end. Lorado could almost picture her mother's stunned face. She hung up before more guilt could come her way. For the first time in her life, she didn't feel small or selfish. She felt free, and just a little bit proud. When Lorado finally decided to visit home that Sunday, she already knew what was waiting for her. The air in the house was thick before she even stepped through the door. Her mother sat on the couch, eyes red from crying, while Nandi paced back and forth with her arms crossed. The moment Lorado walked in, both of them turned toward her like they'd been rehearsing this scene all morning. "So," her mother started, voice trembling, "you really sold your apartment? After everything I've done for you?" Lorado stayed quiet, putting her bag down slowly. Her mother stood up, wiping her tears dramatically. "You've betrayed this family, Lorado. We raised you better than this. How could you embarrass us like that? Your sister had movers waiting." Nandi jumped in before Lorado could answer. "You're unbelievable, Lorado. Selfish, dramatic. You've always made everything about you. It's just an apartment. You could have helped me out for a few months." Lorado looked at her sister, calm but firm. "It wasn't just an apartment to me, no. It was my home. I worked for it. You don't get to take something I built just because you want it." Nandi scoffed. "You're being childish. Mom was only trying to help both of us." Lorado shook her head slowly. "No, she was helping you, at my expense. And she always does." Her mother gasped, clutching her chest like she'd been struck. "How dare you talk to me like that? I sacrificed everything for you." Lorado's voice softened, but there was no apology in it. "I know you did, Mom, but you've also made me pay for it my whole life. Every time I choose myself, you call it selfish. Every time Nandi wants something, you hand it to her, even when it's mine. I'm done letting that happen." The room fell silent. Her mother's tears turned into angry sniffles. Nandi stood frozen, speechless for once. Lorado took a deep breath, steady and sure. "You've always chosen her comfort over my peace," she said quietly. "Not anymore." She picked up her bag, turned toward the door, and walked out before anyone could say another word. Her mother's voice echoed behind her, calling her name, but Lorado didn't stop. Outside, the air felt cooler, cleaner somehow. She got into her car, closed the door, and sat there for a long moment. Her hands were shaking, but she felt something she hadn't felt in years: relief. For the first time, she didn't argue. She didn't explain herself. She just stood up for her peace and left. As she started the car, she let out a deep, shaky breath that seemed to carry years of guilt with it. The tears came quietly, not from sadness, but from freedom. Lorado moved into her new place a few weeks later, a small studio near the beach in Cape Town. It wasn't fancy, but the moment she stepped inside, she felt peace. The sound of the ocean drifted through the open window, mixing with the faint smell of sea salt and fresh paint. The walls were bare, the space simple, but it was hers. No one else's opinion, no guilt, no drama. Just her and the quiet. The first few days felt strange. She'd wake up expecting to hear her mother's voice calling, or her phone buzzing with Nandi's messages. But instead, there was only the sound of waves and seagulls outside. Slowly, the silence started to feel comforting, like she was learning how to breathe again. She spent her evenings unpacking, one box at a time. She set up her little desk by the window where she could work while watching the ocean. She hung a few of her favorite sketches on the wall: soft pastel interiors, small coastal homes, cozy corners that felt warm and alive. Then she added a few plants, some candles, and a small rug. Bit by bit, the space began to look like her. Work started picking up too. Tabo, her realtor friend, introduced her to new clients who wanted her help designing beach cottages and holiday homes. They loved her calm style: clean lines, soft colors, natural textures. "You have a gift for making spaces feel peaceful," one client told her. The compliment stayed with her all day. For the first time, Lorado didn't feel like she was just surviving. She was building something: her own business, her own life, her own kind of happiness. She no longer felt the need to prove herself to anyone. Some nights, she'd sit on the small balcony with a cup of tea, watching the sunset turn the sky into shades of orange and pink. The waves crashed softly below, and the city lights began to twinkle in the distance. She'd think about everything that happened: the fights, the guilt, the pain, and feel a strange sense of gratitude. Because without all of that, she wouldn't have found this peace. One evening, as the wind brushed through her hair, she whispered to herself, "I finally chose me." It wasn't loud or dramatic. It was quiet and calm, like the ocean she now lived beside. But in that moment, she knew it was the truest thing she'd ever said. This studio wasn't just a new chapter. It was her fresh start, one built on her own choices, her own strength, and finally, her own happiness. Months passed, and Lorado's life had started to settle into a peaceful rhythm. Her small studio by the beach had become her sanctuary. Work was going well, her client list was growing, and she finally had the kind of calm she used to dream about. She woke up early, took long walks by the water, and spent her evenings sketching designs while the sound of the waves filled the background. For once, she didn't wake up with anxiety. She woke up with purpose. But back at her family home, things weren't going so smoothly. Nandi and Saifo's perfect engagement glow had started to fade. Money was tight, and they still hadn't found a place they liked as much as Lorado's old apartment. Every viewing ended with complaints. Too small, too expensive, too far. Saifo grew tired of Nandi's constant comparisons, and Nandi grew bitter that her sister had taken away what she believed was meant for her. Arguments became normal. What started as small disagreements about rent and wedding plans turned into full-blown shouting matches. Their mother tried to keep the peace, but even she couldn't ignore that her favorite daughter's life wasn't going as planned. One evening, Lorado's phone rang. When she saw her mother's name, she almost didn't answer. But something made her pick up. "Lorado," her mother said softly, her tone unusually gentle. "Your sister is going through a lot. Things aren't good between her and Saifo. She's struggling." Lorado stayed quiet for a moment, staring out the window at the orange glow of the sunset. "I'm sorry to hear that," she finally said. "She's been crying every night," her mother continued. "You know how sensitive she is. Maybe if you came home, talked to her, it might help." Lorado let out a slow breath. There was a time when she would have jumped in immediately, desperate to fix things, to make everyone happy again. But she wasn't that Lorado anymore. "Mom," she said gently, "I do feel bad for her. But some lessons can't be taught. They have to be lived." Her mother sighed. "You sound so cold these days." "I'm not cold," Lorado replied. "I just finally understand that helping someone doesn't mean losing myself. Nandi needs to learn that taking from others isn't how you build a home. You build one by earning it, by respecting it." There was silence on the other end of the line. Lorado could almost hear her mother realizing that her once quiet daughter was gone. After hanging up, Lorado stood on her balcony for a long while, watching the waves roll in. She felt a small tug of sadness for her sister, but also a sense of peace. She had tried for years to earn her family's approval. Now, she was done chasing it. The ocean breeze brushed against her face, and she whispered to herself, "Some things fall apart so better things can grow." It was a quiet afternoon when Lorado's phone rang. She was working on a design plan for a client, a small beach cottage with white walls and woven furniture, when she saw Tabo's name flash on the screen. Smiling, she answered. "Hey, Tabo. What's up?" His voice came through with laughter. "Lorado, you won't believe what just happened." She leaned back in her chair, amused. "You sound way too entertained. What is it?" "So," he began, still chuckling, "your sister, Nandi, just tried to rent your old apartment." Lorado froze for a second, not sure she heard right. "What?" "Yup," Tabo said, clearly enjoying this. "The new owner called me for a reference since I handled the sale. Turns out Nandi applied for a lease there. Small world, huh?" Lorado couldn't help but laugh, shaking her head. "You're joking." "I wish I was. But here's the twist. The owner rejected her. Said she didn't feel comfortable renting to someone who had been difficult during the move-in inspection. Apparently, your mom was there with her and made a scene." Lorado laughed harder, covering her mouth. "Oh, Tabo, you can't make this up. I told you karma doesn't waste time," he said teasingly. When the call ended, Lorado sat quietly for a while, still smiling. She looked around her cozy studio, the soft afternoon light filling the room, and felt a strange mix of amusement and peace. It wasn't revenge. It was closure served by life itself. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, her phone buzzed again. This time, it was a message from Nandi. For a moment, Lorado considered ignoring it, but curiosity won. The message was short. "I'm sorry. I didn't know how much that place meant to you." Lorado read it twice, her chest tightening a little. For once, there was no defensiveness, no attitude, just honesty. She didn't reply, though. There were no words that could fix everything right away, and she didn't need them to. Instead, she saved the message quietly. She walked out onto her balcony, feeling the cool evening breeze brush against her skin. The city lights shimmered in the distance, and the sound of the ocean calmed her. She wasn't angry anymore. She didn't need an apology to move on, but it felt good to know that Nandi finally understood. As she stood there, she smiled softly to herself and whispered, "Karma really does have good timing." It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was peace. And sometimes that's even better. Months later, Lorado walked through the doors of her new apartment, this time, one she had designed and bought entirely on her own. It was bigger than her old place, brighter too, with wide windows that let in the ocean breeze. The walls were freshly painted in soft cream tones, and sunlight danced across the polished wooden floors. This wasn't just another project. It was her reward, proof of how far she'd come. She moved slowly through each room, touching the countertops, adjusting a vase of fresh lilies, and smiling at the empty space waiting to be filled. Every detail carried a piece of her: the coastal colors, the natural wood, the open light. It was peaceful, not the silence of loneliness, but the calm of finally being at home with herself. As she unpacked the last few boxes, she felt no rush. She hung her favorite sketches on the wall, designs that told her story, one space at a time. When she finished decorating, she stood in the middle of the living room, breathing it all in. In her mind, she could still hear her mother's voice, her sister's complaints, the guilt that used to weigh her down. But those voices felt distant now, like echoes from another life. Her soft voice filled the quiet room, almost like a whisper to herself. "They wanted my space," she said, smiling. "But what I built was never the walls. It was me." She walked to the door and hung a small wooden frame she had designed herself. It read, "Home isn't given. It's claimed." The breeze from the ocean swept through the open window, rustling the curtains as she stood there, calm, proud, and free. The lesson was simple but powerful. Never let guilt make you give up what you've earned, not even for family.